Prime Minister is facing criticism after he refused to speak out in support of the UK's ambassador to the United States. Sir Darroch resigned on Wednesday. It came a few hours after Boris Johnson, the front runner in the race, declined to defend the ambassador. Darroch was targeted. It was a remarkable series of tweets by the US President Donald Trump, who said the White House would no longer deal with Darroch after leaked cables revealed he'd called the Trump administration inept and clumsy. The current British Prime Minister, Theresa May, expressed her disappointment.
I have told him that it is a matter of great regret that he has felt it necessary to leave his position as ambassador in Washington. Sir Kim has given a lifetime of service to the United Kingdom, and we owe him an enormous debt of gratitude.
There appears to be a common thread in our top stories tonight, whether it's the British ambassador in Washington or the chair of the US Federal Reserve. It is pressure from Donald Trump making it almost impossible for public servants to operate in the independent manner that you might expect from them. But more than that, it is the arguably unusual, maverick, some would say dysfunctional way in which he chooses to prosecute his views and policies that puts these other people in impossible situations. Nicholas Burns is America's former Undersecretary for Political Affairs. He was a well-known ambassador to both NATO and Greece, now professor at Harvard. Good to see you, Ambassador. So we know where we're standing on this, let's be clear. Did you ever send a diplomatic telegram in any of your posts that you thought, I hope this never gets public?
Of course I did. All ambassadors do. You know, we have confidential, secret means of communication because our governments deserve the unvarnished truth of what we're seeing. Right. And that's exactly what Sir Darroch did, Ambassador Darroch. He did his job as he should have done his job. And it's grossly unfair that he's been penalized for this and has to resign his position. Right,
so that's the British political side of it. You know, that's a long... He got himself enmeshed in a very nasty argument over the future of Brexit. But, sir, I want you to talk about Donald Trump's reaction to the way in which well, I've got it here. You say in your tweet, let's remember how unprecedented and immature behaviour this is for any public official, much less the President of the United States. But he's just being the President.
We've never had a president like this. We've never had someone...
So you've got one now like this?
We do. He's thin-skinned, he's vain, he's vengeful, and we've seen all of that in his reactions to Darroch this week. Look, the president, it could not have been easy for anybody, including Donald Trump, to read this devastating critique of the Trump presidency. But let's remember, this was done in a private, secret communication from Ambassador Darroch to London. It was not done publicly. The president has to put aside his hurt feelings and put the interests of the United States forward. And the interest of the United States is not to have a major diplomatic crisis with the United Kingdom, our closest ally. And so the president was clearly in the wrong here to declare Ambassador Darroch persona non grata, which is essentially what he did.
Right, and that's it's an important point you make there. But if we then look at, say, for example, how he's treating Jerome Powell. Now, look, again, Nicholas, I know the rubric is you don't comment on the Fed, you don't comment on the monetary policy any more than the dollar. You're well familiar with that. But he says, look, I'm the president, I'm entitled to tell the Fed I think they should cut rates.
You know, we don't give in the United States, as you know, our president absolute unbridled power. We have famously and wisely a system of checks and balances, and the Fed is part of this in a way. The Fed was established to be quasi-independent from the president and from the Treasury of the Secretary. And we have not had a president, we've had some very good people in modern times who ever have tried to challenge and push and cajole the Fed in so blatant and public terms as President Trump has done. We hope that our leaders can have some wisdom here and some self-restraint, but President Trump is lacking in both categories.
Isn't the real problem that you and everybody in the city where you are and the entire diplomatic community, everybody's playing Scrabble while the president's playing Monopoly? You're not playing the same game.
and we shouldn't want to play this game. The president, as you know, has been divisive. He's trying to divide Americans from each other. The most shocking thing here, Richard, that I have thought about is that the president feels free to tee off on our Democratic allies like the British government or Chancellor Merkel or Justin Trudeau, and now the chairman of the Federal Reserve Bank. He never does this to Kim Jong-un, Vladimir Putin, Xi Jinping. Don't you find that curious? That he goes after our Democratic allies, or in the case of Jerome Powell, a member of the United States government, and yet is never frank, never caustic, never critical of authoritarian dictators. That is a very disturbing trend.